I sold the book in, I think it was like May or something of 2023. And it was like semi-proposal. I don't know. It was like several chapters had been written, and then there was like an outline for the rest. And then October 7th happened, and then, honestly, like I use the word genocide on October 16th. And that's not because I'm a scholar of genocide. It's because I'm a Palestinian whose family is in Gaza and I know the math. So from the very beginning, I was like, and I have like a monitor and a laptop. So it was like split screen. I was like trying to write Palestine alive while I was watching Palestine die. I was trying to
Right.
write Gaza. I was trying to resurrect parts of Gaza that I had spent years like getting the pieces together, and I was trying to put them together. And I was watching those same buildings fall. I was watching the trees that my father was born under, like destroyed. And I mean, it was just unbelievably, still is unbelievably painful, but it was like acute in a different way then. I was like publishing a lot on the outside of like the book project and doing, I was going to protests and I was talking to family and I was counting our dead and I was trying to write this book. And so, yeah, knowing it was going to come out in 2025. I mean, it was just like impossible to know, but also like it was also very possible to know like there was going to be so much loss at least by then. I was watching, eventually us going towards, like 2024 and elections and things like that. And I was finishing the book in 2024. So I thought about it, but it didn't make sense for me to try to leap into
Yeah.
2024, 2025. It would have felt forced and clumsy, and it would have anyway been obsolete in its own way by the time it came out. So I decided to stay true to sort of like the arc that made sense, which is like where I arrived as like someone who I felt like had at least come to some arrival about like how I now relate to Palestine and my identity. And it's about a position and a form of understanding the responsibility of love, I feel is like really a huge part of this journey. So I ended up changing, this is where I really should be getting to. I ended up changing the last third of the book. I had a completely different like last chapter,
Mm.
and then the like end like epilogue was not a part of my plan. But the what I decided was I really wanted readers to leave the book with what I thought was like the equipment to look at the world today. There was plenty of history already in the book, but I wanted people to have more of an understanding of just all of the obstacles that Palestinians have faced in like their fight for self-determination, and also all the ways in which Zionism has sort of like foreshadowed something like this. Because if you look at like the founding fathers of Israel and like the Zionist like thinkers, like many of them have talked about and praised theoretically the idea of driving every Arab out. So in so many ways, there's so many people scratching their heads like we have no idea where all of this came from and why are these things happening. And I wanted to give people, that's why I changed the last chapter to be called Resistance, because there's always been resistance. And we've
Right.
tried everything from nonviolent mass like demonstrations to hijacking planes to get people's attention. And I think that like if you really look at the history, you recognize that some form of resistance is natural and called for in order to, just sort of like be honest about what the power dynamics are. That
Hmm.
Palestinians are unarmed people who have no control over their borders, who have been dismissed and used and played with by on the global like political scene for all of these years. And basically we're at an impasse. And yeah, I just wanted people to understand how many doors have been shut and how many traps have been laid and why there hasn't been quote unquote peace yet. So I wanted to set people up with what I thought was like a more complete and often like overlooked history, and so they could understand a bit more the events today.